Good morning. My name is Sylvia Demarest. I'm a retired attorney living in Dallas, Texas. During my career of over 50 years, I primarily handled civil trial matters involving defective products, medical negligence, general negligence, and the abuse and neglect of children. One of my major projects was a litigation against the Catholic Church, where I compiled a database of priest perpetrators, which can now be found online at bishopaccountability.org. The trial resulted in the largest verdict against the Catholic Church for the abuse of altar boys by Catholic priests. In 2018, I had the privilege of visiting Crimea and meeting with the Crimean Parliament. We were part of a exchange program sponsored by the Center for Citizens Initiatives. And as part of that process, 4 of us were asked to go to Crimea. We flew into the brand new international airport at Simferopol, and that had been opened only a month or two previously. A month or so previously, had the Kresh Bridge was also open that connected Crimea to Russia. When we landed at the airport, there were quite a few television cameras and reporters that were there. We did not have any idea why we were getting all of this attention. It was only later that we discovered that we were to meet in the next few days with the Crimean Parliament. We did meet with the Parliament. We met in the grand room of the Crimean Parliament. The meeting was presided over by the Speaker of the Crimean Parliament, Vladimir Konstantinov, and was attended by most of the parliamentary members. There were 4 of us that were part of the delegation. During this meeting, we had the opportunity to ask all the questions that we wanted to ask of the Crimean Parliament as to the events leading up to to Crimea leaving Ukraine and joining the Russian Federation. It was a wide open meeting. Any questions were permitted. Some of the first questions that I was interested in were to find out what the events were that led to the beginning of this process of holding a referendum in order to be annexed into the Russian Federation. And I was told during that meeting that there were several events that began even before the Maidan coup, which led them to believe that should a coup take place, that they would be under severe potential for violent activities on the Crimean Peninsula. And so they began a process even before the coup events in February of 2014 to look into what the legalities would be of Crimea's current situation, what some of the potential might be for Crimea to look into either becoming more autonomous within Ukraine, to becoming a free trade zone, or even to think about perhaps asking the Russian Federation to rejoin. The events of the coup submitted the concerns of violence. There was a delegation of several buses by the Berkut police returning following the coup that were attacked by Partisans for Right Sector. The buses were burned. 7 people were killed. Some of them were forced to eat broken glass. Others were pursued by dogs through the fields. And when they came back to Crimea, they told these horror stories, and it increased the alarm of the Crimean people that they might be subject to extreme violence should events proceed further. And so that allowed them to really begin in earnest discussions of what to do. In the meantime, there were examples of violence that were taking place in Crimea. The Crimean Parliament was occupied by violent partisans, and it became a real concern that there might be special forces from Ukraine that would land at the airport, others that might come in by train, who would begin the process of basically a civil war in Crimea. The Speaker of the Crimean Parliament confirmed that he requested assistance from the Russian Federation to keep the peace until they could decide the best avenue to pursue. in order to decide what to do about the future of Crimea. So on February the 28th, what is known as the Polite Green Men occupied the Crimean Parliament, the airport, and all of the military bases with the intent, as was borne out by subsequent events, of keeping the peace so that the Crimean Parliament would be free to meet and to decide the fate of Crimea. That occurred, and the decision was made to present a referendum to the Crimean people, asking if they wanted to remain an autonomous part of Crimea, to become some other status, or to request of the Russian Federation that they be allowed to be annexed into the Russian Federation. A referendum was held on March 27th, 2014, and over 90% of the Crimean people asked to rejoin the Russian Federation. Through these events, the four of us who were part of this group that visited Crimea and met with the Crimean Parliament, we were of the opinion that the events that took place in Crimea, including the referendum, were reasonable under the circumstances, and that the Crimean people had the right and obligation under international law to exercise their right of self-determination, which they did as a matter of vote. Throughout the time that we were in Crimea, we probably met with 400 or 500 people, everyone from business leaders to people who were involved in activities benefiting children, to students in high school, to students in college, and to an individual. They all expressed sadness of the events that led to the Maidan coup, but they were pleased with what had happened since the referendum that was held in March of 2014. Since that time, Ukraine immediately cut off water to the Crimea and then subsequently cut off electricity. Everyone had to scramble to be able to provide these necessities. In the meantime, Russia began a process of investing in the improvement of Crimea, including its infrastructure, such as the international airport and the Kresh Bridge, both of which were open before we arrived. As a result of our trip to Crimea, we had the overall impression that this was a wonderful country with a large group of very wonderful people who did the best they could under very trying circumstances to be able to benefit the people of the Crimea and to avoid violence, which was a very, very serious prospect at the time. Violence was avoided. There was only one real violent incident where shots were fired, but all of that came to an end after the polite green men showed up and kept the peace and allowed the Crimean Parliament to make the decisions that were necessary to call for the referendum, and that the referendum would be conducted under peaceful circumstances. I've read all the literature that's come out since then, and I recognize that most of this has been called an invasion by Russia and aggression by Russia. But from the perspective of the Crimean people, this was help that they desperately needed in order to be able to make decisions for their own self-determination and their own future benefit. And so the process that ensued was a process that met with the approval of over 90% of the Crimean people. Not only did the Ukraine cut off water and electricity to the peninsula, but the United States and other Western countries also instituted very, very punishing sanctions against the Crimean people. When we were there, our credit cards did not work. We had to use cash. And we heard several stories from many of the people, particularly the students, who had prepared for careers that involved international travel and the use of the facility of the English language that they were preparing for, that had now been dashed as a result of these sanctions and the reaction to the exercise of basically their right of self-determination. And I don't really think the people of Crimea had much of a choice about what they did. The alternative would have been violence and perhaps civil war. We saw subsequent to that the burning of the trades union building in Odessa, which killed over 30 people. And now we see the ongoing war in the Donbass, which once again was facilitated by radicals from the right sector and other partisans who were opposed to any ability of Ukraine or Crimea to maintain relationships with Russia. I joined the Friends of Crimea because I think this story needs to get out to the world. I don't believe the people of the world have an understanding of the events that led to the decisions that were made by the Crimean people. I also don't think that the people of the world understand the unanimity that the Crimean people expressed to the rejoining of Russia in negation of the prospect of any violence taking place. Everyone that we met talked about their fear that their homes would be attacked, their children would be killed, and that they would be subject to basically a civil war unless something was done about this. I think this message needs to get out to the people of the world that there are going to be instances like this that occur again. And the peaceful ability of people to make decisions for themselves under peaceful circumstances is an important principle to stand up for. And so I joined the Friends of Crimea in order to stand up for these values, particularly the right of self-determination on the part of the people of the world, in this instance, of the people of Crimea. Thank you.